What's up, woman? It's your man E, Church of Dog. And I was just reading this book yesterday all about the Native Americans here where I'm walking. This place actually used to be called the Rocky Place. And I'm in Santa by the Santa Barbara Mission. And I've been reading this book recently, written in 1920, all about the mission and how the Padres came here. And it's a very interesting story. Come on, guys. Are you pooping? It's a very interesting story because, the story is that the Padres came here. Come on, guys. And they were welcomed by a bunch of Indians. Indians were super friendly, super nice, super helpful. And within a short period of time, maybe 50, 60 years, they started building this wall and this mission. And it's kind of strange because there's kind of a missing piece to the story, which is how did they get these people to build this stuff? Some crazy bitch coming out here. Come on, guys. Let's go. And it's kind of a missing piece to the story, which is how did they get them to build all this stuff? Well, they enslaved them. They had guns, and they were already dealing with a population that was decimated from the diseases that had come through contact with the Westerners. Come on, Taya! And they enslaved them. And it's crazy because you read these accounts of how many people died at the mission, and it went from about 40% of the Indians that were kept there died at the mission, and then it ends up being, almost 100% of all the Indians die there of diseases, of starvation. And you're just going, how could that happen? This was all supported by the Catholic Church. This was all supported by Christianity. And it's crazy, the more you think about it, you're like, it's not really that uncommon that Christianity has been used as a means to colonize people, to disenfranchise them from how they were originally living. Christianity's been used to support slavery. The very early Christian ministers in the United States were not opposed to slavery. And there's very detailed sermons on how, you're actually doing God's work by having slaves. And how, Frederick Douglass even talks about how some of the most pious Christian ministers were the worst slave owners. They were so mean and cruel. And we wonder, how does this happen? There's no doubt in my mind, Jesus didn't have this in his mind. I'm sure if we rewound 2,000 years, we told Jesus, hey man, people are going to be killing people in your name, enslaving them and torturing them in your name, he'd probably be very surprised. But what it all comes down to is words. The mistaking of the truth for the words. And these attachments to these words, particularly the ones written in books that are taken out of context, maybe not even accurate. We don't really know how accurate some of these words are. And it's really sad because that wasn't the original idea of Jesus. That wasn't the original message of Muhammad. But yet so many horrible things have happened in these people's names. And we just really wonder why. And the reason why is because the primary system of beliefs is very limited. And it does not actually really doesn't really get across the real meaning and realization that these people had so long ago that these traditions are founded on. It's a very limited interpretation of what these people were saying. And unfortunately, they take a few good things that the people said, a few deep truths, and then they intersperse it with a lot of bullshit. And I even see this today with all the self-help books and personal growth and development, or veganism, or raw food, or your exercise technique, that all these systems of belief that are not living, breathing things. They are these systems that have been created by people and codified and put into words and written down on books. The system is limited. And as long as there is religion that is primarily attached to these limited views, there's not going to be any peace really in this world. I would say it's almost possible that religion has done more harm than good. And we'd have to look into the facts. We'd have to see, how do you define good? How do you define bad? But in terms of the actual numbers, I really wonder. I really wonder. Now, that's not to say there's not some truth to the message of Jesus. It's not to say there's not some underlying deep spiritual energy. That's not to say there's not something we can learn from those teachings. But it is to say, when 300 years later, the codified books, we've translated them into two, and we allow people to use those words to do bad things. And just reading about this history of this art, I don't think there could have been something further from the truth that the missionaries were helping the Indians. I don't think there could have been something further from the truth that the missions had any sort of salvation to give the Indians. It was in fact the opposite. And what is a person spiritually, or just in their life? How do we live in a way that helps us get a deeper connection with the world, help us be a better person, help us make the world a better place, help us be more in harmony? It's complicated, but it's also very simple. It's complicated, but I don't know if it has to be complicated. It's hard to control people when you can't create a system to tell them all the answers, whether they're right or wrong. It's hard to create a religion when you can't tell people that the best, deepest, greatest truth is beyond words. But isn't that, like Osho said, the nature of enlightenment, the nature of the deep experience is to be misunderstood? And isn't it somewhat understandable that if there was a Jesus and he had some deep message and he brought this message back to the world to share it with common people, they wouldn't understand the message? And they didn't understand the message. They missed most of the message. They mistook a lot of the words for the message. But the words were just pointing and painting a picture of the message. So that's what Church of Dog is about. I want to start creating a platform and getting some opinions out there that maybe will help somebody begin to find their own spiritual practice, begin to find their own highest path. Or maybe they're already on their own spiritual practice. Maybe we could do this together. But it's like I think Bill Maher said, religion, the only thing that can save a world torn apart by religion. And nowhere more true is that here than actually right in this creek is where the Indians ran away. And they went up there and they hid in the mountains. And the Catholic, okay, go swimming. Okay, go. Okay. Well, actually, we're going to the vet. Don't go swimming. Taya, let's not go swimming. We're going to the vet. They ran right up this creek. And the Padres hunted them down all the way to Tulare County, which is pretty far away, and forced them all to return. And it's just like such a mind fuck. You're like, still to this day, the Catholic Church owns the mission. Still to this day, they canonize, Padre Serra, who is definitely a fucking super evil guy. And still to this day, people say the same prayers, the same chants, read the same book that the Catholic missionaries used to attempt to exterminate an entire race of people. There were not that many that saw a difference between the teachings of Christ and enslaving and torturing Native Americans. But that's it, just make a video, get some information out there, get some thoughts out there, different views. But if I had one suggestion for you today, I wouldn't even give you any suggestions. I would just say, thanks for watching my video. Thanks for being open. And may the force be with you.